It's Wednesday, December 17th, 2008, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.norml.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Good day, Stashers. I hope you're warm and safe this holiday season, and welcome to the podcast. Now, I want to remind you that during this holiday season, if you're looking for gifts for that favorite cannabis consumer in your life, check out the NORML Cafe Press Store. Just look on the norml.org website in the top right corner for NORML holiday gifts. Also, don't forget about the two contests that we've got going on right now. We've got commercials for them later on in the podcast, but briefly speaking, you could win a 6-night trip for 4 to Amsterdam by participating in our Win for Charity raffle, or you could win your share of $10,000 in cash prizes for our NORML Obama video contest. So listen up later on in the podcast for more details in the commercials for those two contests. Now, today is Wednesday, and that is our Cannabis Science Day, so we'll be visiting with Dr. Mitch Earlywine from New York to speak about cannabis and chronic pain. And this is going to be a subject we're going to be visiting all week here at the Daily Audio Stash. There are so many people out there that are using cannabis to help treat their chronic pain, and yet there are doctors and hospitals out there that are denying pain medication to patients if they're caught with cannabis in their system. It's an absurd catch-22, and today we'll talk with Dr. Mitch Earlywine about it. Tomorrow we'll be talking with NORML's Paul Armentano on some recent studies on this subject, and we'll have more guests on Friday discussing the subject of cannabis and chronic pain. Also on today's stash, I'm digging back into the vaults for an interview with Jed Rife, who's the director of a film called Waiting to Inhale, a documentary about medical marijuana in California. This will be good viewing if you're caught up in a snowstorm and have to stay at home with your DVD player. You can learn a little bit about medical marijuana while you do. Plus our regular hemp headlines and our musical break. It's all the stuff you've come to enjoy in your NORML Daily Audio Stash.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 13 states today, and THCF has clinics in 8 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, and now Michigan. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML Daily Audio Stash, Hemp Headlines. Drug czar says drug war a success. NORML thinks differently. In the Wall Street Journal, John Walters was touting the success he's achieved in the war on drugs. He said, quote, "Whatever challenges await him, President-elect Barack Obama will not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to keeping a lid on the use of illegal drugs. Our policy has been a success, although that success is one of Washington's best-kept secrets." End quote. Now, to prove this success, Walters notes that teen drug use has declined for 6 straight years, though he didn't note that it stopped declining this year. Walters thinks that's due to his policies, though studies have shown his massive anti-marijuana ad campaign for kids was a dud. I think it's just as likely that teen drug use declines in a poor economy, or even that more medical marijuana states lead to less teen drug use. Actually, I think commenter Eva Joran at the Wall Street Journal's Opinion Forum might be onto something when she wrote, "Specifically in the schools, could it be that so many kids are now legally medicated by their doctors that they no longer feel the need to self-medicate with recreational drugs?" Also, this weekend, NORML's Paul Armentano got the first response letter published to Walters' ravings. Is the drug war working, or worse than the disease? Outgoing drug czar John P. Walters claims that the U.S. war on drugs is working, but that's true only if one redefines success. Here's the reality. Illegal substances, from marijuana to cocaine to heroin, are more potent and more available than at any time in history. Deaths from illicit drug overdoses are at an all-time high, and most illicit substances are cheaper than ever before. Thanks to the strict enforcement of America's drug laws, which primarily target nonviolent drug offenders, police now arrest some 1.8 million citizens every year for drug crimes, over 800,000 for minor marijuana offenses alone. As a result, the U.S. has earned the unique distinction of jailing a greater percentage of its population than any other industrialized nation. If this is Mr. Walters' definition of success, then I shudder to think what he would consider to be failure. Sacramento County okays medical marijuana ID cards. The Sacramento County Board of Supervisors decided today to adopt a medical marijuana identification card system 4-1, making it the 48th county to adopt plans to comply with a requirement of a 2003 state law. By giving patients the option of obtaining cards identifying them as qualified medical marijuana patients, law enforcement officers will be able to quickly discern whether they are operating within the law, sparing taxpayers the burden of costly, time-consuming false arrests, advocates said. The only counties larger than Sacramento that have yet to obey the law requiring a medical marijuana ID card program are San Diego and San Bernardino. These 2 counties have challenged the program in court 3 times, all of which have failed. The San Diego County Board of Supervisors has announced its intention to make a final appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Ventura County became the last in Southern California, other than San Diego and San Bernardino, to implement a medical marijuana ID card program on Monday. Well, it's good, I guess, that Sacramento County has decided to finally follow the law and issue these medical marijuana ID cards. I always think it's kind of strange, though, coming from Oregon, where we have a mandatory card system and it's statewide. I often wonder, how do the law enforcement deal with 48 different county-level cards, and how can they tell one card from another, or whether or not a card might be a fake or not? But I guess a voluntary registration system at the county level is better than no registration system at all. New Jersey governor would sign medical cannabis law. Trenton, New Jersey. Governor John S. Corzine said Tuesday that he supports and would sign a bill allowing medical marijuana use, but added that economic issues are his top priority. Corzine told reporters Tuesday, quote, "I don't think we ought to be having fights on issues that don't go to the heart of the needs of a broad majority of folks. I think that this is one that, if it can be moved expeditiously because there's a consensus, I think that's great. I have studied the issue, and I think that if properly structured, it's an initiative that's sensible." End quote. The Compassionate Use Medical Marijuana Act would allow state-licensed patients to possess as much as 1 ounce of marijuana and 6 plants for medical treatment. The bill, sponsored by Senator Jim Whelan, Democrat of Atlantic, and Nicholas Scutari, a Democrat of Middlesex, Somerset, and Union, also would create medicinal marijuana alternative treatment centers. The possession and distribution of marijuana would remain illegal under federal law, but advocates said it would essentially decriminalize that because most prosecutions are under state laws. The state Senate Health, Human Services, and Senior Citizens Committee approved the bill by a 6-1 vote on Monday. It now faces a full Senate vote. While it has been discussed in General Assembly committees, a vote has not been scheduled. 13 other states have similar laws. Now it's just a matter of getting the bill through the Senate and the Assembly. I think the limit needs to be higher. You can get a whole lot more than 1 ounce of marijuana off of 6 plants. The way the bill is structured now, come harvest time, all New Jersey's patients who grow would be out of compliance. 8 ounces is somewhat better, and 24 ounces, as in Washington and Oregon, would be ideal. But if it has to be 1 ounce to begin with to get the bill passed, then we'll start from there. Once we have some protection for patients, we can work on getting better protections through amendments. West Vancouver, British Columbia Police ditch DARE program. West Vancouver Police surprised parents and teachers last spring by quitting a popular drug awareness program that uniformed officers had been delivering in elementary schools for more than a dozen years. Quote, "There is no evidence that it's been successful in reaching its goals," end quote, Corporal Fred Harding told the North Shore News in explaining the decision to withdraw from the Drug Abuse Resistance Education, or DARE, program. Nevertheless, West Vancouver School District is working to replace the program. Early next year, it will be training teachers to implement a replacement program, which is expected to be offered in grades 6 and 7 after spring break, said Superintendent Jeff Jobson. DARE has been both controversial and popular for many years. It was created by DARE America, but is delivered in British Columbia by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and local police forces. Of British Columbia's 60 school districts, all but 4 offer it in at least some schools. We've known for 5 years now that the DARE program, aka cops coming into classrooms and saying,
"Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. If you do them, you're bad because drugs are bad," okay?
Our own government even said all of the evaluations suggested that DARE had no statistically significant long-term effect on preventing youth illicit drug use. Having cops teach kids about drugs is like having pharmacists teaching a defensive driving course. Hey there, Stashers. How would you like to win a 6-night trip to the most cannabis-friendly spot on Earth? That's right, a trip to Amsterdam for 4, sponsored by the NORML Foundation. It's an exciting new fundraiser for our organization, partnering with Win for Charity to help us raise money so we can provide programs and services to NORML members like you. Win for Charity is an online hosting solution for charitable organizations that allows us to harness the power of the internet to increase our fundraising ability. How do you win? Simple. Just go to www.winforcharity.com/normal. That's win, the number 4, charity.com/NORML. Click your Buy Ticket Now button, then just select NORML as your charity. The vacation package includes 6 nights in an Amsterdam City hotel, including breakfast, entrance to the Rijksmuseum, and a canal bus day pass, round-trip airfare, private transfers from airport to hotel and hotel to airport, a full-day tour to Delft, The Hague, and Madurodam, and a full-day tour to the windmills and Volendam. Get your tickets now at winforcharity.com/normal. Your ticket helps to support our organization, and you could win 6 nights in Amsterdam. Who is telling you the truth about marijuana? The government? Scientists? Doctors? Which claims are scientifically valid and which claims are reefer madness? Every Wednesday we separate the stems of propaganda from the buds of truth with NORML's look at cannabis science. This week here on the Daily Audio Stash, we're concentrating on the subject of pain. In many of the all of the medical marijuana states, for that matter, chronic pain is a qualifying condition for the use of medical marijuana, and yet many people out there, particularly in law enforcement, don't seem to think that there is such a thing as marijuana for pain management. So we're joined again by Dr. Mitch Earlywine here in our Cannabis Science segment. I thought we'd bring up the subject of cannabis and pain. So, Dr. Mitch, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back.
Now, you and I were conversing in an email about this situation where people in VA hospitals, especially when they are undergoing, if they're caught using medical marijuana, they don't get access to their regular pain medication. Is this the truth? This sounds awful.
This is really a rough decision, and I think an egregious error on the part of the VA system. And I understand their concern, but basically, if any vet tests positive for THC metabolites in the urine, they're no longer eligible for opiate meds for pain. And I really feel like these are two medications that can go really well hand in hand. And cannabis, of course, has fewer of the negative consequences and some of the bad side effects that are common in the opiate meds. And if we got a second here, I just want to sort of walk through how that works.
Sure.
Everybody sort of knows about the opiate effects on pain, and these are really incredible drugs that go back to at least 6400 BC as far as their pain-relieving qualities have been known. But they do have some rough consequences, some that people don't like to talk about. They're really, really rapid in their development of tolerance. So 2-Vicodin doesn't do what 2-Vicodin did by the time you're on the sixth one. And unfortunately, they're almost always paired with aspirin in a pain-relieving, attempt, but actually in a way that ends up exposing folks to liver problems because aspirin can be very difficult for the liver to break down. So here's a chance to essentially keep your opiate meds to a minimum by using cannabis as a pain reliever. The laboratory evidence for cannabis as a pain reliever is splendid in modern times, but the pharmacopoeia of, the legendary ancient Chinese Emperor Shennong back in 2737 BC also said, hey, this is really good for pain. So, we literally have thousands of years of data suggesting this is a wonderful pain reliever. As we saw earlier this year in some data that were published, the response is basically an inverted U. So there's sort of a peak right in the middle where the best pain-relieving effects are. Not enough doesn't do it, and too much doesn't do it, but just right, as you will, the sort of three bears model will keep pain to a minimum. And folks who can use cannabis then can decrease their consumption of these opiate meds, keeping them from developing a lot of tolerance on these, and also keeping that exposure to aspirin and some of the things that are often paired with these opiates to a minimum.
And I think it's particularly egregious here in the case of the Veterans Administration decision when we're talking about, a lot of veterans using cannabis not just for pain, but for treatment of psychiatric disorders like PTSD.
It's curious because, I do feel like some of the exposure-based psychological treatments for PTSD are still best, but a lot of folks, either, by their own decision or because of some of the availabilities of those treatments, have decided to turn to cannabis instead. And I think that's, of course, their right. And in truth, the things these guys have been through. I was at the VA in Jackson for a year, and I think they should be able to do whatever they want after enduring what some of them have endured. And the idea that now they're going to essentially lose not only another pain medication, but really access to a whole lot of important aspects of their medical care is really, I think, a shame, a real problem.
Well, it's also flying in the face of a lot of the research that we've seen this year. I've reported at least 3 stories that you and I have talked about the use of cannabis as a superior pain management for neuropathic pain. So some of these vets that are coming back with amputations and other sorts of pain that are more neuropathic, now we're denying them any sort of cannabis for that in the non-medical marijuana states, and then if they use it in the medical marijuana states, they can't get their opiate-based pain relievers.
I think neuropathic pain is, in fact, a prime example because that's one that we really understand so little about, and it shows what a mystery, the human body is, and also how pain tends to ebb and flow in curious ways. So there is no single solution to pain, including not only medical things, but also psychological and just lifestyle interventions that can all contribute. But we've got to use every arrow in our quiver, so to speak. We need to have a full armament in order to really make sure that folks who are experiencing chronic pain can still have productive lives. And the bottom line is it turns them into taxpayers again. Like,
yeah.
If you've got a functional person, what a surprise. They can go out and work and have a great life. And if they really can't because they're denied access to medicine, well, what a shame. We've got somebody else who's really not living the kind of life you could live.
And this, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but this newest research that shows that cannabis helps to improve the effect of the opioids, is that another thing that is missing in this discussion?
See, and that's an interesting finding, and one that you can imagine is difficult to work on in the lab. It's hard enough to give somebody cannabis in the laboratory as it is, but I'm going to, propose giving them both opiates and cannabis in the lab.
Yeah.
The ethics committees just jump up and down and go a little nuts. But there's literally hundreds of anecdotal cases of folks who claim this. The other thing I really want to emphasize is opiate abusers, people who are addicted to heroin, intravenous, opiates and things like that, actually don't like cannabis because it sort of takes the opiate high away. And I think very few people understand this. This is not some, intoxication cocktail. This is folks really trying to make sure that they can have the most productive day they want. I think that the key here is, too, people misunderstand chronic pain and don't understand the severity but also the persistence of it. So if you've ever had a bad headache, well, imagine having that every single day. I mean, sure, anybody can take it for a little while, but this is day after day after day. So you can imagine the comorbid depression, all the anxiety, stress, interpersonal conflict with family members, and just general, malaise that seems to accompany this. And to turn this around could have just such a dramatic impact.
Well, for our listeners out there who may or may not be veterans or may not be in medical marijuana states, in general, what could we offer them in the way of advice as far as managing chronic pain, even with or without cannabis?
What's been really impressive in the behavioral medicine literature and in the interventions that you can do with this all boils down to some of the same things we've known for stress management. So people are willing to spend even just 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening with a relaxation exercise, something as simple as just sitting down and listening to your favorite tunes without any distractors. It's stunning what an impact that has. If you're interested in the idea of biofeedback, it doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing with wires and things like that. If you can just get a little cheapo thermometer from your hardware store and tie it around your finger and sit quietly and see what you can do to think about thoughts of like sunlight on your hands or spicy food or things like that, and try to get your blood flow to the extremities, particularly to your hands again, it's also astounding how that not only decreases blood pressure but seems to alter chronic pain. And then some of the things that nobody seems to think of, but it works in remarkable ways. So just scheduling your day in a way that makes sure you don't overdo things. And everybody says, oh, I can't do that. But in fact, as you start getting more and more assertive and really following the things that make you feel good and letting some things go if they're just going to be a hassle, it's astounding how your mood improves, usually then the sleep improves, and then once the sleep improves, the pain tends to improve. And as you can imagine, that whole pain-sleep problem combination can be a really dastardly situation. So the opportunity is there to improve sleep and then subsequently improve pain, and then suddenly mobility and just how much you get done in a day, mood, all those things really improve.
Aside from the overexertion or overstressing oneself, are there any medications or activities people who are suffering chronic pain should avoid?
It's curious because some of the stimulants seem to exaggerate. So caffeine, of all things, can exaggerate pain responses. If you happen to be, a big fan of coffee and things like that, by all means, moving to half-calf or even decaf seems to have an interesting impact. And then depending upon your medical situation, things like yoga, stretching, and standard light but brisk exercise seems to go very, very well as far as these things are concerned, too. Things that they really should avoid are always just overexertion. So anything that's going to, cause an impact on the painful area is clearly a no-no. In contrast, if you've got time for a nice hot bath at the end of the day, boy, it can make all the difference.
It's the old Henny Youngman joke, doctor, it hurts when I do that. Well, then don't do that.
Exactly.
How about foods? Is there any, as far as diet that can help, or is that make much difference in pain management?
We haven't seen a lot of systematic work on that, although some folks, if they do a really big sugar load, so, you sit down and eat a whole pint of Haagen-Dazs, you do get this lethargic insulin reaction that tends to exacerbate sensitivity to a whole lot of negative things, including pain.
Okay, well, those are all good things to keep track of, and we'll follow this issue. Like I said, all week we're talking about this and various aspects of pain management. Dr. Earlywine is the Associate Professor of Psychology at the State University of New York at Albany, joins us every week here on Cannabis Science. Thanks for being with us, Dr. Mitch.
Thanks so much, Russ.
It's tough talking to kids about marijuana, especially if you might be a parent who dabbled a time or two in your youth. So to help you out, get your copy of Dr. Mitch Earlywine's latest book, A Parent's Guide to Marijuana. Dr. Earlywine is an associate professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and an expert on the studies concerning marijuana, its effect on health and society, and the methodology behind the statistics. He is a frequent guest here on our daily audio stash. Dr. Earlywine lays it all out without the propaganda and scare tactics that parents know won't work with teenagers. He presents a rational understanding of cannabis, what it is and what it isn't, and why kids shouldn't be using marijuana. You can order today through Amazon.com or check our links at our blog, stash.normal.org. Here at the NORML Daily Audio Stash, we work hard to change our nation's marijuana laws through education and discussion. But we also take time to relax and unwind with an eclectic mix of pod-safe music from many independent artists. We look for music that speaks to the growing truth about cannabis, or music that speaks to broader themes of freedom, liberty, social justice, equality, and protest. To find out more about the artists and download the music you hear on this podcast, just log on to stash.normal.org. And if you'd like to get your music heard by the online cannabis community, just send us an email at stash@normal.org. Joseph Parsons is a German singer-songwriter who has been touring Europe and recording albums for almost 20 years. His edgy, melody-focused songwriting brings a heart and soul to his songs through energy and emotional honesty. This song, High Again, is off of his CD from 1995 entitled Lies, which you can pick up at cdbaby.com or the artist's website at josephparsons.com. I like the guitar sound he gets on this song, and the lyrics remind me of all those hard times where the only friend I had in the world was sweet Mary Jane. This is Joseph Parsons and High Again.
Going nowhere, Lord, I know where I'm going now. Too many voices, hearing them howling. Now I'm talking to myself. Must be crazy, I give you warning. I don't look up very well. I told my father, go to hell now. You couldn't know how far I fell. So low, let's get me high again. I wanna feel alive again. Get me high again. I wanna get high. Once a week now, well, I call you and tell you things have changed. You don't believe me, though you want to. My destination's still the same. You've been kind, show no mercy. Why your dagger's still digging deep? I'm losing contact, going under. I couldn't know how far I fell. So low. Get me high again. I wanna feel alive high again. I wanna feel alive. I wanna get high. Get me high again. I wanna feel alive again. Get me high. Get me high again. I wanna feel alive. Get me high again. I wanna feel alive. Wanna feel alive. Get me high again. Get me high. I wanna be high. I wanna feel alive.
Hello, Chicago!
Barack Obama has been elected the 44th President of the United States. But will he bring us, the cannabis community, the change we can believe in?
It's an issue of doctors prescribing medical marijuana. I think that should be appropriate.
NORML is asking you to take action and help us hold President-elect Obama to his word with our $10,000 pro-cannabis law reform ad contest.
When I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Just make a 30 or 60-second video or flash animation that answers the question, what should President Obama do about pot? You can submit as many entries as you like, and winning videos will be featured on NORML's website and television campaigns.
What I'm not going to be doing is using Justice Department resources to try to circumvent state laws on this issue.
The grand prize is $3,500, so enter early and enter often.
Well, I would not punish doctors if it's prescribed. That may require some changes in federal law.
Contest deadline is January 15th, 2009. Check NORML.org for official contest rules.
The war on drugs has been a utter failure, and I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
President Obama, we couldn't agree more. There's lots of great cannabis movies coming out, and some of them might be the Harold and Kumar type entertainment movies, but you got to have your vegetables along with your dessert, and that means you need to be watching some documentaries too to feed your mind and feed your head with the important information all of us cannabis crusaders need to know. I'm joined now by Jed Reif, who's the director of one of these such films, a film called Waiting to Inhale, and you can find out all about it at waitingtoinhale.org. Jed, welcome to the Daily Audio Stash.
Great. Thank you for having us.
All right. So you're directing this film, and this is a film about the medical marijuana movement, and it pretty much chronicles the rise and the success of the medical marijuana movement. Is that correct?
Yes, we've really, for over 5.5 years, we've followed it, and the film has been edited 3 times. We actually came out with a fine cut back in 2004, and then have re-updated it twice since then so that it makes it very current. Because, you know, it's kind of, everything has been evolving slowly over time here.
And who are some of the people that you've gotten into this documentary?
Well, you know, I think one of our favorite people groups is WHAM, the Women's Alliance for Medical Marijuana in Santa Cruz. You know, we kind of see Valerie and Mike Corral as not only did they help write Proposition 215, but what WHAM offers its members, its cooperative, is some of the best services available. You know, they provide medical marijuana for 250 terminally ill patients for about $30,000 a year. So patients can get medicine that they need for free each week, and they also get a really strong support group. And that's an incredible model. And, you know, Valerie's gone on to create our own hospice, an in-home hospice for these patients. You know, I think their group also really makes the case about how medical marijuana really is reaching seriously ill patients. When we started filming, There was, since when we started filming 2001 to when we stopped filming at the end of 2006, 119 of the 250 patients had died.
Wow.
And when we show the film at WHAM or in related groups or where members of WHAM see it, you can just really see the impact because there's all these faces that are now gone.
Yeah, it is a sad story to tell sometimes, and you do a great job of telling this story. I think you did also an excellent job of bringing in some of the counter arguments, the side from the drug-free parents and all of that. How were you able to get these folks? Did you let them know it was a documentary in support of marijuana, or did they have any reservations about appearing in the film?
Well, I didn't, intend to make the film, quote, for or in support of medical marijuana. What I just tried to do was to tell the story, and part of it was actually an investigation of whether medical cannabis really worked. I had been on the board of an AIDS foundation back in the late 1980s, and at that time, AIDS was a death sentence. And, one of the things we did was try to help people find some dignity and help die with, some love and support around them. And if they needed something, whatever it might be, whether it was a dinner or bringing their family out, or in some cases it was medical marijuana to help them eat because they couldn't eat and they were dying of the wasting disease, we did that. And so when Prop 215 was passed, I wanted to see whether it really worked. And I went to Dr. Abrams and asked him, and he said that he would tell me and let me know and give me exclusive access to film if he got permission to film. And he did. I mean, ultimately he got permission to do studies, and we were able to film.
Oh, that's great.
So balancing that to see whether it did work with going out to find out who was the leading opponents of medical marijuana, and we met many of them at the Supreme Court when we followed the Oakland Cannabis Buyers Cooperative case to Washington, D.C., and we followed Jeff Jones and Yvonne Westbrook, an MS patient who is a member of the Oakland Cannabis Buyers Cooperative, now the Patient ID Center. That case was so significant, we thought we really wanted to follow it. And there, on the steps protesting, was a whole group of people associated with the National Families in Action and what was later to become the Parent Corps. And they were calling themselves Mothers Against Marijuana, Mothers Against Medical Marijuana. And Ginger Katz, Courage to Speak Foundation, she had lost her son to a heroin overdose. And Ginger is honestly convinced that it was smoking cannabis and drinking a little beer that got her son involved in drugs and then led to his overdose on heroin.
Right.
And we didn't feel like we should treat these people as, kind of stick characters and knock their knees out under them if they made assumptions that we didn't agree with. We felt that they had real honest concerns, whether we agreed with them or not. And that's what we went to them with and tried to and discussed that with them, that we wanted to present their case without bias.
And I think you did a really fair job of that. You treated the subjects very fairly and let them make their case without any sort of mocking tone to it or anything like that. But coming from my perspective, of course, I see the film as a pro-medical marijuana film. But that's my perspective on it because I'm pro-medical marijuana. I guess it the beauty's in the eye of the beholder sort of situation there. Now, as far as this documentary goes, you've been screening it at a few of the different festivals and such. What has been the reaction from the public to your documentary?
Well, we've had an incredible reaction, not only here in the United States and Canada and across the world where it's been shown. We've won film festivals in Spain and been featured in Australia and in Chile. And we've been able to not only play traditional film festivals, but also major international conferences like the International Harm Reduction Conference in Barcelona this year, where Ethan Nadelman of the Drug Policy Alliance and Marcia Rosenbaum represented us at this event and discussed the film with the harm reduction specialists from all over the world. We've also had it shown at the International Drug Policy Alliance here in the United States. And then we've done a series of targeted screenings, both at some film festivals, and then tied that in with organizing in, say, in New Mexico with Rena and the folks who got the law passed there, so that we were able to start out at film festivals, then go to commercial screenings, then go and use it for grassroots organizing and to show the legislators and the staff of the legislators in the state of New Mexico. And Rena, who ran that campaign for DPA, said that our film was a very important asset in getting that law passed.
If we have
Bill Richardson signing it.
I was going to say, if we have any activists out there in the audience that are listening, how can they get in touch with you and be able to use this film in their efforts?
Well, if they go to waitingtoinhale.org, they can link into or get in contact to my website, and they can also get copies of the film. There's also a screening and discussion guide that's online, a PDF that they can download. But we really feel that we have tried to develop and work closely with like MPP, Americans for Safe Access, NORML organizations, the Drug Policy Alliance, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, the Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, all these groups to try to target a state. For example, like in Illinois last year, we did 10 screenings in the state of Illinois from September to February. We were funded to do 7 of those screenings, and the others we did with volunteer efforts. But it really was we were able to collaborate with the local organizing that was going on in the state to influence legislators, but get in there in front of that and target the audience. So the members in these different communities, such as Canton and Peoria, Bloomington, NORML, Carbondale, Springfield, we're really focusing on reaching grassroots people, local medical professionals, members of the clergy, and patients and the general public. And by doing that, by promoting those screenings and having enough funds to do it right, we were able to get 12 newspaper articles, 5 TV interviews, and 4 radio interviews.
Wow, that's
really
excellent.
Got people out to see the film.
Yeah, that is excellent. Now, are there any other plans for wider distribution, perhaps in more commercial theaters or maybe on cable somehow?
Well, we are working on getting the film on television right now, and that's one of our major goals. But we're continuing. We're right now working on an engagement campaign with the Sundance Documentary Fund. We were funded by Sundance, and only films that were funded by them can apply. But I'm doing that, and then and that would give us additional funds and resources to tie in with what the 2009 strategic campaigns of MPP, ASA, and the other organizations are doing, and how they can use this film and use modules of the film. We're looking for funding right now to cut a module, say, for MS patients, another module that would be for AIDS patients. We have outtakes with Judith Kushner, who died of cancer recently, but who was one of the big organizers behind Prop 215 and who suffered from cancer, in interviews with her and her daughter and son. As she went through that horrible experience of having cancer, surviving it, and then ultimately dying, but how marijuana helped her. So we see that if we can create these kinds of things that people can also distribute among themselves and share, and we can reach family groups of MS patients and family groups of AIDS patients and AIDS clinical trial units, we think, that's one of the important things is most people have never seen the information that's in this film. It's not shown on any television station in the United States. It's not been widely distributed except for these 54 screenings that we've done across the United States and around the world. And so we feel that if you don't have the information, how can you make informed decisions?
Absolutely.
And all that people see, is propaganda footage and some footage that was shot back in 1998, 99 after the passage. And it's very stereotypical. And they really need to see real patients getting real relief with real scientific studies that document and back this up, like the ones that GW Pharmaceutical did, is done in Great Britain, and the ones that Dr. Donald Abrams did at UC San Francisco and UC San Diego.
Yeah, I think I completely concur on that, because I think, when we present the facts to the people in a dry scientific way as far as the studies go, that's part of it, certainly. But when you hear that firsthand testimony from people like Irv Rosenfeld and some of the other patients in the film, where it's really hard to deny to someone to their face when they're telling you they're getting relief from the use of marijuana. And I think that really sells the concept much alongside the scientific studies. They go hand in hand. I think it's a great job.
And Irvin is a really wonderful example. I mean, he's been getting marijuana for over 20 years from the federal government. He was the second patient behind Robert Randall, the late Robert Randall, who pioneered and who forced the United States government to recognize marijuana as a medicine. We're in this dual world where marijuana is 6-7 people get marijuana from the federal government every month, 300 rolled marijuana cigarettes in a tin, and nobody else can, unless you're in a medical marijuana state. and then you're still subject to the laws of the federal government coming down on you. So, but Irvin is a stockbroker. He works every day. He smokes 11 marijuana cigarettes every day, and he's able to do his work and volunteer with volunteer organizations that help other people with serious diseases. So he's really stands out as the kind of person that we think we should be holding up as an example.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic film, and like I say, I encourage everyone to check it out. The website is waitingtoinhale.org. We'll have links to that up at our blog at stash.normal.org. We've been speaking with the director, Jed Reif, by telephone. Jed, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you, and love to hear from any of your listeners and see if we can work with them on campaigns in their local communities.
Absolutely. Get in touch with them at waitingtoinhale.org. Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.normal.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with a comment from Adam, one of our Stash blog readers, in response to Barack Obama's transition team's answer that President-elect Obama is not in favor of the legalization of marijuana. Adam writes, quote, One line to explain that Barack Obama is concerned about the number one issue? One line? This is insulting at best. One line to address the nearly 800,000 Americans arrested yearly for simple possession of marijuana? One line to address the issue of critically ill Americans being arrested and in some case imprisoned for using medical marijuana in states where its use is legal by state law? One line to explain to me why I am a criminal for using marijuana in my home while millions of Americans will legally indulge in alcohol this holiday season? I believe marijuana use is a public health issue and should be addressed likewise. We, as Americans and recent Obama supporters, deserve more than a one-line answer. Boy, that's well put, and I couldn't agree more. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Take care of each other, tokers.